A homeless woman walked into the wrong house thinking it was a shelter. She met a lonely millionaire. Before we continue, please remember to like, share and subscribe. The night was cold and unforgiving, rain pouring relentlessly from a heavy sky. Maria trudged along the empty, glistening streets, soaked to the bone and weighed down by the burden of loneliness and despair. Her threadbare clothes clung to her skin, and the small, worn bag slung over her shoulder was the only possession she carried. Each step felt heavier than the last, not just from exhaustion but from the crushing reality of having nowhere to call home. Through the blur of raindrops, a distant glow caught her eye, a grand house bathed in warm, inviting light. To Maria, desperate for any sign of shelter or comfort, it looked like a beacon in the storm. Without hesitation, she quickened her pace, heart pounding with a fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, she had found a place to rest for the night. Reaching the door, her trembling hand pushed it open. The sound of the heavy door creaking echoed through the quiet interior as she stepped inside, the warmth immediately enveloping her. Her eyes scanned the room cautiously, mixing relief with uncertainty. The opulence of the space was foreign to her. A sharp contrast to the cold streets she knew so well. Maria's footsteps were hesitant, each one echoing softly on the polished floors. She moved deeper into the house, unsure if she was truly safe or if she had made a terrible mistake. The shadows and silence wrapped around her like a thin veil, and yet she held on to a sliver of hope that this place was the shelter she so desperately needed. Unbeknownst to her, this house belonged not to a refuge or charity but to James, a wealthy man whose life was as solitary as the empty rooms he inhabited. The door Maria had opened was not meant for someone like her, someone with nothing, but fate had its own plans. This quiet moment, charged with uncertainty and fragile hope, set the stage for an encounter neither Maria nor James could have predicted. It was the beginning of a story where two vastly different lives would unexpectedly collide, and where compassion would bridge the gap between despair and renewal. The storm outside raged on, but inside, a new chapter was quietly unfolding. Inside the grand mansion, silence hung heavily in the air, broken only by the soft patter of rain against the large windows. James, a wealthy but deeply lonely man, was sitting in his study when he heard the unexpected creak of the front door. Startled, he rose cautiously and made his way toward the entrance, his mind racing with questions. Who could possibly have entered his home at this late hour without permission? When James opened the door, his eyes fell upon Maria, soaked, shivering, and clearly out of place amid the polished floors and elegant furnishings. At first, suspicion flickered across his face. This was not a typical visitor. His protective instincts kicked in, and for a moment, he wondered if he should call security or send her away. But something in Maria's eyes, a mix of fear, exhaustion, and quiet desperation, gave him pause. The room around them was vast and immaculately decorated, yet it felt cold and empty, much like James's own life. The luxury that surrounded him did little to fill the hollowness he often felt. Seeing Maria's vulnerability in that expansive space stirred a surprising empathy within him. Maria, still catching her breath, quickly explained her mistake. She had been seeking shelter from the relentless storm outside, mistaking his home for a refuge. Her voice trembled slightly as she admitted her situation, a homeless woman looking for a safe place to rest, not expecting the grandeur she had stumbled upon. James listened intently, his initial wariness slowly melting away. Despite their vastly different lives, an unspoken understanding began to bridge the gap between them. He offered her a warm blanket and a seat near the fireplace, gestures that were small but significant. This was hospitality laced with caution, yet sincere. Their conversation started hesitantly, each choosing their words with care. Maria spoke softly about the harsh realities of her life on the streets, how every day was a struggle for survival, how loneliness and fear were constant companions. James, in turn, shared fragments of his own story. How wealth had built walls around him, isolating him from genuine connection. The tension in the room was palpable, but so was the fragile hope. Two strangers from opposite worlds found themselves sharing a moment of honesty and humanity. The lavishness of James's mansion stood in stark contrast to Maria's humble existence, Yet within those walls, a bridge was forming, one built not on money or status, but on vulnerability and compassion. As the rain continued to fall outside, the mansion's grand rooms seemed less intimidating, softened by the quiet presence of two souls seeking solace in each other's company. In that unexpected meeting, both Maria and James sensed the possibility of something new, a connection that might heal the wounds of isolation and hardship they each carried. This was not just a chance encounter. It was the beginning of a journey that would challenge their assumptions, break down barriers, and reveal the transformative power of empathy. For the first time in a long while, the empty rooms of the mansion felt a little less lonely, and the streets outside seemed a little less harsh. In the warmth of the unexpected meeting, two lives poised on the brink of change quietly began to intertwine. The grand dining room was bathed in the soft glow of candlelight, casting flickering shadows across the polished wood table and the elegant china set before them. The storm outside had finally eased, leaving a quiet stillness in the air that felt almost sacred. Maria sat across from James, a simple yet hearty meal spread before them, a stark contrast to the opulence surrounding them, but enough to warm their bodies and souls. As they ate, Maria's voice broke the silence, gentle yet steady. She began to share the story of her life, the loss of her home, the tangled web of family troubles, and the relentless struggle she faced every day just to survive. Each word was laden with pain and resilience, her honesty raw and unguarded. Her eyes, reflecting flickers of the candlelight, betrayed the weight of years spent fighting against despair. James listened intently, the usual guarded expression replaced by something softer, more vulnerable. His gaze never left her face as he absorbed every detail, every pause and inflection. The grandeur of his surroundings seemed to fade into the background, eclipsed by the human connection blossoming between them. For once, the trappings of wealth and success felt irrelevant. When Maria finished her story, there was a moment of stillness, a silence filled not with awkwardness but with understanding. Then James, moved by her courage and candor, began to open up about his own life. The isolation that money couldn't erase, the loneliness that success had failed to fill. He spoke quietly, almost reluctantly, revealing cracks in the polished facade he wore for the world. He told her about the emptiness he felt inside, the gulf between his material riches and the lack of genuine human connection. The camera drew close, capturing the subtle shifts in their expressions. The flicker of tears in Maria's eyes, the softened lines on James's face, the way their hands brushed momentarily across the table. The lighting embraced their faces, highlighting the vulnerability that had begun to bridge the vast gap between their worlds. As the meal continued, the conversation flowed more freely, touching on hopes, fears, and dreams long buried beneath life's hardships. Maria spoke of small moments of joy, sunsets she cherished, the kindness of strangers. And James shared memories of his own past, moments when he had felt truly seen and heard. Despite their differences, they found common ground in their shared humanity. The dining room, once an emblem of solitude and privilege, transformed into a sanctuary where walls, both literal and metaphorical, started to crumble. The richness of the food was matched only by the richness of their exchange, a nourishment far deeper than what the table could offer. Outside, the world seemed unchanged, but inside that room, something profound was unfolding. Two souls, shaped by vastly different lives, were forging a fragile but genuine connection. The barriers that had kept them apart were slowly breaking down, replaced by empathy and the first tentative steps toward trust. In this quiet, intimate space, Maria and James began to rewrite their stories, not as isolated figures trapped by circumstance, but as individuals capable of healing and transformation. The night stretched on, filled with shared stories and soft laughter, signaling the start of a new chapter where understanding and compassion would guide their way forward. The evening's warmth lingered long after the meal ended, a testament to the power of human connection to bridge even the widest divides and to mend the cracks left by hardship and loneliness. As the night deepened, the grand mansion settled into a calm stillness, broken only by the occasional creak of old wood and the soft hum of distant city life beyond its walls. Maria, wrapped in a warm blanket, lay quietly in the guest room. It was the first time in months she felt a flicker of safety and comfort, a fragile sense of belonging in a world that had long felt cold and unforgiving. The soft glow of a bedside lamp cast gentle shadows, and for the first time in what seemed like forever, her racing thoughts slowed, giving way to a quiet hope. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the mansion, James sat alone in his study. The room was lined with shelves heavy with books and mementos of a life filled with success but marked by loneliness. The polished desk before him was cluttered with documents and unopened letters, symbols of a busy life that had somehow failed to fill the emotional void within. His hands rested on the armrests of his leather chair as his eyes stared vacantly into the dim light, lost in thought. Memories began to flood his mind in vivid flashes. Lavish dinners in grand halls where laughter felt forced, boardroom meetings filled with tension and power plays, and evenings spent in solitude, the weight of isolation pressing down like an invisible shroud. Faces of acquaintances blurred into the background, none truly knowing the man behind the facade. Moments where connection might have been possible slipped away unnoticed, swallowed by ambition and the relentless pursuit of success. The silence of the study was stark and profound, a sharp contrast to the warmth that had filled the house earlier when Maria's presence had brought life into the cold spaces. Her vulnerability and honesty had cracked open a door in James's guarded heart, revealing a chasm he had long kept hidden even from himself. The emptiness that had once seemed insurmountable now felt smaller, bridged by the unexpected thread of human connection. As he sat reflecting, the tension in the room was palpable. Questions surfaced in his mind. What did this chance encounter mean for both of them? Could this fragile bond withstand the realities of their different worlds? Was there a path forward where healing and understanding could grow? Meanwhile, Maria's thoughts were no less complex. The comfort of the guest room was tempered by the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Was this kindness a fleeting respite or the beginning of something more? Her heart was guarded, shaped by years of hardship and betrayal, yet a tiny spark of trust had begun to kindle. The camera lingered on their separate yet intertwined worlds, James, surrounded by the trappings of wealth but imprisoned by solitude, and Maria, weary from life's battles but newly touched by compassion. The night deepened, cloaking the mansion in shadows, but within those shadows, a quiet transformation was underway. The scene closed on James's thoughtful gaze and Maria's peaceful rest, both poised on the edge of change. The silence spoke volumes, charged with anticipation and the unspoken promise that this night was not an end but a beginning, a prelude to the journey of healing and connection that awaited them both. In this moment of reflection, the story embraced the profound truth that even in the loneliest places, a single act of kindness can spark a light strong enough to guide two lost souls toward hope. As dawn broke over the city, the first rays of sunlight filtered through the tall windows of the mansion, casting a warm glow that contrasted sharply with the cold, stormy night that had brought Maria inside. In the quiet breakfast room, the atmosphere was filled with a tentative mix of hope and uncertainty. James, dressed casually but still exuding an air of quiet confidence, sat across from Maria, who appeared both wary and weary. The events of the previous evening still hung between them like a fragile thread, waiting to be woven into something stronger. After a moment of silence, James broke the stillness with a calm, sincere voice. He expressed how deeply moved he had been by Maria's courage and honesty the night before. More than that, he admitted that her presence had stirred something inside him, a desire to do more than just offer temporary refuge. He wanted to help her rebuild her life, not just with kind words, but with real, tangible support. He pulled out a carefully organized folder filled with contacts and resources. People and organizations specialized in housing assistance, job training programs, and counseling services. James explained how he had connections with community groups and nonprofit agencies that could provide Maria with the tools she needed to regain stability and independence. His offer was clear: this wasn't just about sheltering her for a night but about helping her find a path forward. Maria listened, her eyes reflecting a mixture of disbelief and cautious hope. Years of hardship had taught her to be skeptical of promises, especially those coming from a world so different from her own. She hesitated, her lips trembling as she voiced her doubts. How could someone like James truly understand the reality of her struggles? What if this offer was just another temporary lifeline that would disappear once the kindness of the moment passed? But beneath her skepticism, there was a glimmer of something else, a fragile trust beginning to form. James's demeanor was patient, respectful, and unwavering. He didn't pressure her or demand immediate decisions. Instead, he acknowledged her fears and assured her that any step forward would be on her terms, at her pace. The tension between them shifted subtly, evolving from two strangers bound by circumstance to partners embarking on an uncertain journey together. As they spoke, the grand dining room, once an imposing symbol of James's wealth and isolation, transformed into a space of shared possibility. The scene captured this evolution through soft lighting and intimate framing, focusing on their expressions, Maria's tentative acceptance and James's quiet determination. It was a moment rich with meaning, underscoring themes of hope, renewal, and the bridging of social divides that often seem insurmountable. James's proposal of help was more than a simple gesture, it was an invitation to rewrite both their stories. For Maria, it was a chance to rise above the hardships that had defined her recent years. For James, it was an opportunity to rediscover purpose beyond material success and to connect with someone whose resilience challenged his own perceptions. As the morning light grew stronger, the scene closed on a note of cautious optimism. Maria, clutching the folder filled with resources, allowed herself a small, genuine smile, an unspoken acknowledgement that perhaps this unexpected meeting was the beginning of a new chapter. James's expression mirrored this hope, his eyes reflecting the belief that kindness and human connection could indeed transcend the boundaries that once kept them apart. In that quiet breakfast room, two very different lives had begun to intertwine, setting the stage for a partnership built on respect, empathy, and the shared desire to heal and grow. The promise of second chances hung in the air, ready to guide them through whatever challenges lay ahead. As the days slipped into weeks, the once quiet mansion began to hum with a new energy, a subtle but powerful shift born from the growing bond between Maria and James. Their relationship was no longer defined by circumstance or obligation but by genuine companionship, a connection that was as unexpected as it was transformative. Maria, with her resilient spirit and unyielding determination, became a catalyst for change in James's life. She gently coaxed him out of the shadows of his isolation, encouraging him to step beyond the walls of his grand home and re-engage with the world he had long avoided. Together, they took small but meaningful steps. Walking through nearby parks, attending community events, and even venturing into bustling cafes where James observed life beyond his usual bubble. Maria's laughter, candid and unrestrained, echoed through the mansion's halls, rekindling warmth that had long been absent. In return, James became a steady pillar of support in Maria's journey toward reclaiming her independence. He helped her navigate the complex systems of job training programs and housing assistance, patiently standing by as she confronted the fears and doubts that surfaced along the way. His confidence, once cold and distant, softened into encouragement and quiet belief in her potential. Moments of shared triumph, an application approved, a new skill learned, were celebrated with genuine joy, weaving threads of trust between them. Yet, this newfound friendship was not without its trials. Maria's past, marked by betrayal and hardship, made it difficult for her to fully open her heart. Trust did not come easily, and there were days when shadows of doubt crept in, causing her to withdraw or question James's intentions. She grappled with the fear of being hurt once more, of losing the fragile stability she was beginning to build. These moments of vulnerability were raw and real, captured in close-up shots that revealed the flicker of pain behind her guarded gaze. At the same time, James faced resistance from the world he had long inhabited. News of his friendship with a woman from a vastly different background rippled through his social circle, sparking whispers and thinly veiled judgments. Some questioned his motives, labeling his kindness as a fleeting whim or a public relations move. Others expressed concern about the image he was projecting as a successful businessman. These criticisms stung, challenging James to confront not only external pressures but also his own fears about societal expectations and personal identity. Despite these challenges, both Maria and James found themselves growing, not just as individuals but together. The mansion, once a symbol of isolation and wealth, now stood as a testament to resilience and the messy, beautiful process of building connection across divides. Their story was one of setbacks and breakthroughs, moments of laughter shadowed by uncertainty, but always underscored by a deepening respect and affection. The scene unfolds through a series of intimate vignettes, Maria teaching James how to navigate a busy marketplace, James offering words of encouragement during her moments of doubt, shared dinners filled with conversation that stretched long into the night. The camera captures the nuances of their evolving relationship. The hesitant smiles, the shared silences, the occasional tears, painting a vivid portrait of friendship in its most authentic form. This chapter of their journey embraces the fragile nature of new relationships, how trust must be earned and rebuilt, how societal walls can challenge even the strongest bonds, and how growth often comes with discomfort. It is a story of two souls from opposite worlds finding common ground, proving that genuine connection can flourish even amid adversity. As the scene closes, Maria and James stand side by side, looking out over the city skyline from the mansion's balcony. The future remains uncertain, but in that moment, they face it together, ready to meet whatever comes next with courage and hope. On a bright, sunlit afternoon in a bustling city park, Maria and James walk side by side along a winding path, their steps in quiet harmony. The park, alive with the laughter of children, the rustle of leaves, and the distant melody of street musicians, serves as a vibrant backdrop to their new beginning. Neither the weight of Maria's past hardships nor the isolation of James's former life defines them anymore. Instead, they are united by a shared vision and a hopeful future. Maria, once lost in the struggles of homelessness and despair, now carries a renewed sense of purpose. Drawing from her own journey of survival and transformation, she has founded a community outreach program dedicated to helping others who face similar challenges. Her initiative offers shelter, support, and resources to those in need, aiming to provide not just temporary relief but lasting change. The program embodies Maria's compassion and resilience, a testament to how her difficult experiences have been turned into a force for good. James, the once lonely billionaire, has undergone a profound transformation. He has stepped away from the relentless pursuit of wealth and success, dedicating his time and resources to causes that matter deeply to both him and Maria. Together, they fund initiatives focused on education, housing, and mental health services, areas they both recognize as vital to breaking cycles of hardship. James's commitment reflects a newfound understanding that true fulfillment comes from connection and contribution, not just accumulation. As they walk, their conversation is easy and filled with genuine laughter, a stark contrast to the guarded exchanges of their early days. Their smiles are warm and unforced, their eyes shining with hope and possibility. Around them, the park bustles with life, symbolizing the vibrancy and potential of the world they are rejoining, not as isolated individuals, but as partners in making a difference. The camera captures close-up moments. Maria's hand gently brushing against James's as they pause to watch a group of children playing, the soft glow of sunlight highlighting their faces. The atmosphere is one of peace and optimism, underscoring the deep bond that has blossomed between two people from vastly different backgrounds. The scene fades to a gentle, uplifting musical score as the narrator's voice softly reflects on the power of unexpected encounters. The narration speaks to the idea that sometimes, life's most profound transformations begin with a simple act of kindness or a chance meeting. It reminds viewers that compassion can bridge even the widest divides, between wealth and poverty, loneliness and companionship, despair and hope. This final moment leaves the audience with a sense of closure and inspiration. Maria and James's story is not just about overcoming personal struggles, but about how empathy and human connection can change lives in the most remarkable ways. It is a celebration of new beginnings, the courage to embrace change, and the belief that everyone deserves a second chance. As the screen fades to black, the lingering message is clear: no matter where life starts, it is the journey, and the relationships we build along the way, that truly define us. If you enjoyed the story, please remember to like, share and subscribe. Thank you.